Hey everyone! Today I want to show you how to make this little felt tree ornament. These are very easy to make. You can make these with children with some assistance because there is a needle involved, but I think that they would work well if you've got older kids. And I think they just are so cute, and you can do different shapes or whatever you happen to have for the little ornaments. I used buttons, but if you have beads or something like that, that would work too. And I think they're really cute. Let's go ahead and get started. In order to make this ornament, you will need the following. You are going to need a piece of felt. I am using a piece way bigger than I actually need, but it's just some felt I had. You can buy it by the yard, which is what I did here because I just had it for another project, but you can also get the sheets that come pre-cut, usually found in like the craft section of stores, or if you're in a bigger craft store, it's usually near the children's crafts. You will also need some beads, or in my case buttons. Beads work too. I just have some random buttons. You need some scissors. You'll need a piece of ribbon. You'll need a thimble if you think that you'll need it. This is just in case, because we're going to be using some needles. I have 2 needles here. I have a sewing needle, which is going to go with the thread that I have here. That's going to sew the buttons on. And then I have a tapestry needle, which has a bigger eye on it, and that's to go with the yarn that I'm using to close up the sides. I just thought it was more decorative. You can also use embroidery floss, whatever you happen to have on hand or whatever you like. The first thing that we're going to do is actually cut out the shape that we want. Now, what I'm going to do is just fold over my piece. It actually has a little bit of a bend in it, so I'm just going to fold it sort of where it was bending anyway. And I'm going to flatten that down just a little bit. Now, if you're worried about it moving around or something like that, you can pin it down, or you can use a template, whatever you like to do. But for this one, all I'm going to do is we're just cutting out a triangle. We just want a general triangle type shape. So just grab your felt, and it's okay if your ends don't end up exactly perfect because we can trim it. So figure out what shape you want, like what angle you want your triangle to be. I think that's pretty good. And then I'm actually going to go in from the other side too, because it'll make the cut a little easier. Again, we can trim it up if you need to. Okay. And you can probably just pull it right out. You can go ahead and lay your scrap to the side. And so you should have basically a diamond shape. Fold it back up, meet the points, and see if everything lines up. Mine is a little curved on that side, but you know what? I'm going to keep it. Let's just keep it. Okay. Okay, you can see I have a little bit of a, just from where the cut marks were, they weren't as smooth on the other side. So what I'm going to do is just smooth those out just a little bit. Just so they're not like hanging. You can see like they're very, very tiny little pieces. Just so that way they're not hanging on the outside. The next thing we need to do is put the buttons on. I'm only going to put the buttons on one side because I want the back side of the tree to be empty, but that's up to you. If you want to do them on both sides, you can. First, we're going to just sort of try to figure out a good configuration. Just lay your buttons out. I like this one for the top. I thought that would look cute. And then just take your other buttons and sort of arrange them in a way that you like. Okay, the only thing that you really need to keep in mind is when you put them on to make sure that you're leaving a bit of a border on the side, so you may need to kind of pop them in. I'm going to use one at the very top, but I'm not going to sew that one on just yet. We're going to sew that one on when we're ready to close everything up. Once you have your buttons arranged the way you want, you're going to need to cut a piece of thread, and we're going to thread it in the needle. If you have a needle threader, you can use it, but I can usually get it threaded pretty easily. I'm using white thread, but that's just what I had closest to me. If you wanted to, you could match with the button color. And then if you've never sewn before, what I do is I take the string, the two ends, wrap it around my finger like that, and then I use my two fingers to create twist, and then I pull, and it puts a little knot there at the bottom. Okay, so now we're just going to sew on our buttons. Some of these buttons, oh actually, yeah, some of them have 2 holes and some of them have 4. You can do it however you want. I'm going to go ahead and just move all of these off except the one I'm going to be using. And then just be very careful. I'm going to insert the needle through the back. You can see like that's how it's going to be folded. There you go. And you can put this on either in a cross motion or side to side. I'm going to do mine in a cross. What that means is that where mine's 4, I'm going to go from here to here, then back up through here to here. So in that way. And you don't want to put these on like so tight that they, you know, might break the thread or anything like that. And just keep going. Use your thimble if you need to. Until it's secure. And if you end up with like one thread that seems like it's looser, just pull it. There you go, and then you should be able to make that a little cleaner. And then we're going to go ahead and do that for all of the other buttons. I am going to do that off camera so that way you guys don't have to sit and watch me do the entire thing. And I will be back when I am done. Maybe, if I can get that last one done. Okay, once you have threaded it on where it's on secure, you can turn it over, and you can see that that edge is not that great. Like it kind of got a little, I must have split the thread a little, but that's okay because it's going to be sewn up in the middle. You will need to knot your thread without going through the felt, if you can help it. There we go. All right, and just do that a couple of times. And then cut your thread. I'm going to go ahead and sew the rest of the buttons on except this very top one, and I'll come back when I'm done so that way we can move on to the next step. Okay, I've sewn on all of my buttons. Then you can just make sure that they're in the place that you want. If they're not, you can use a seam ripper or something to, you know, replace them. But there you go. So that's what your tree is gonna look like when it's done. Of course, your buttons are going to be different than mine, but you can see it's going to look something like that. Okay. Now we need to go ahead and sew up the tree. Now you have to make a decision because of the way we cut it. Do you want to put a seam here at the bottom, or do you want it to just go around the top? I just want mine to go around the top. I'm not going to actually sew anything at the bottom. And at this point also, If you want your ornament to be stuffed, you will need to stuff it with something when you are sewing it up or before you finish sewing it up. I'm going to just keep mine flat without any kind of polyfill or anything like that on the inside. So in order to do that, you'll need to go ahead and get your ribbon, which is what we're going to use to hang it from the tree. And then you'll need your yarn, which we're going to use to sew it up. You can use your thread if that's what you're going to do, but I'm going to go ahead and just use some yarn. I've got my tapestry needle, which this one has a wider eye. See? So it'll fit, the yarn will fit through it. We're not going to use 2 strands of this together, so you don't have to worry about tying a knot in the bottom. We're just going to use it from bottom here, so you'll just knot just the one end. Okay, so I went ahead and knotted the end of my yarn, and now we're going to start sewing it together. So since I've got the end of the yarn knotted, I'm going to put that on the inside so that way it's not showing on the outside. So just pick whichever side you want to start on, and we're going to go about see, the button is there, so we're probably going to end up going close to the button. And it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. If you want it straight, though, you will need to probably mark it. I think I got that a little too far. There we go. Since I'm not putting anything on the inside of mine, I don't have to worry about it. All I need to do is just tuck the yarn end in there. And go ahead and make sure that it lines up. So go ahead and fold it over again, so that way you know that we're coming in where it's even. Then we're just going to do a simple stitch. We're not going to worry too much about having it line up perfectly or anything like that. And I'm not going to backstitch or anything. I'm just going to make it really straightforward. Again, just kind of keeping in check that you are, in fact, having it lined up. You'll probably need to check this probably after every stitch. So there's the back, and we're going to skip forward just a little bit. You can try to keep it even if you want. Just make sure none of them are really, really, really spaced out too noticeably different, because that you will see from kind of far away. And my piece of string is a little long, but that's okay. As you can see, it's starting to form. If your yarn tangles on you, just pull it out. There we go. Again, check. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to work my way to the point, and I'm going to show you what we need to do, because we do need to stop at about the spot where my button is, the top of the button, because we're going to put the ribbon in, and I want to show you how to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and sew up here, and I'll be right back. Okay, you can see that I have sewn up. It's not a perfectly straight line, but I'm okay with that. And we're right there. So what you need to do now is you're going to fold your ribbon in half. I'm not going to press it at the top, but I'm going to fold it so it's going to hang like that. Or you can do it the other way, whichever one you want. So sort of make those edges line up. You're going to open up your little tree, and we're going to just place the ribbon there. Okay. You can, if you want, make it line up perfectly, but I find that it will sit on the tree better if it's slightly out of line, but that's up to you. Okay, and now we're just going to continue sewing. So you're just going to go through like you did, except now you're going to be going through the ribbon as well. And we're going to do that all the way to the point and then back down to the other side. keep an eye on your yarn or your thread, whatever you're using. Make sure it's not getting too snagged. And I am going to go ahead and keep on working on this, and I will be back once I'm at the end. It can get a little difficult when you've got this many layers, and if my needle is fairly sharp, but still. There we go. And by that point you should be okay. It should have been through both of the layers, so it shouldn't move on you too much. Mine didn't. And at the point I'm going to go to here, and then you don't have to go all the way to the very, 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 very point if you don't want to. But that's up to you. So there we go. I think that's good. Just double check that it's all lining up. At this point it might be easier from the other side. That's going to be the hard part, is getting it through the top point and not having everything get all out of line. But I'm going to go ahead and work my way down to the end, and I'll come back when I'm at this point. But I will say again, if you are planning on stuffing yours, you want it to be puffy, when you get about right here, maybe up to here, you're going to want to go ahead and put the polyfill and stuff inside of it. So I will see you when I'm back down to the beginning. Alright, so I went ahead and sewn all the way to the end. Now you can see, obviously I can't just cut that and let it go because, you know, it will fall right out. So what we're going to do is go through, back up through here, but only through the first layer. You could just knot it at that point if you wanted to on the outside, but I find that it looks, if you can make it a little neater, that's fine. Okay, and can you see that piece of yarn right there? What we're going to do is kind of fold that down so that way we can knot around there. We're just knotting right on that one, so it's on the inside. And then do it again. And then pull that tight. And then what you may want to do, because it's felt, you can go through part of the felt with your needle, but not all the way through, but I think it'll be okay. Go ahead and cut that, and then we're going to tuck that in sort of like the initial part was. But you'll probably need your needle. Give me just a second to get that out. There we go. Okay, and then, okay, and now we're just going to tuck that inside. You can use the end of your needle to do that. If you're using thread, that would work too, or you can still do that with there, but kind of have to bunch it up a little bit. And just use the end of the needle. Try not to poke your needle through the felt, which I almost did there for a second. There we go. And anything that's left over, just trim. And that way from the front you can't see that. Now all we have left to do is to put the top button on. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I had this one and I thought it was really cute for there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to sew that piece on right there. So again, you'll need a piece of thread. You don't really need a very long piece at this point. And you'll need your sewing needle. And just need to thread it. Okay, once you have your thread, your needle and thread, you need to figure out where you're going to place that. Just be careful and make sure that wherever the holes are, you're not too close to the edge, because with the felt it might rip out. So I'll check. That looks pretty good. I'm okay if the very top of that tree kind of pokes out a little. It's fine with me. All right, and then just keep sewing. Keep sewing it on there, and then once it's secure, about 4 times should do it. And once it's secure, we're going to turn it over and knot it. Do that a couple of times. Oops. I pulled that too tight. And then we're just going to cut that piece of string. Cut it close. And there's your ornament all ready to go on your tree. All right, and there you have it. This is your little felt tree ornament. I think it's adorable. I would love to see what you guys make. I think that, you know, we all have different craft items and stuff on hand, so it'd be interesting to see what you all come up with. So if you make this, please let me know. You can send me, you can tag me on Instagram or Facebook or something like that. And I'm crafting with Claudia over there. So let me know if you guys make this. I'll see you next time. Bye!